I'm a man with no enemies at all. That is why I'm disliked by my friends. I can't say they care for me, but girls I know disagree. There is no romance, oh sir, when you know sir, she's gone, oh sir, love will peter out. But if she's distant, stalling, it's enthralling. Love is calling, passion growing strong, but only when it all goes wrong.
Earnest wants me for his own, but if the truth be told, I'm quite bewildered. You were like a sister, now I don't even know you, so holier than thou. You're like a stranger now.
For the man who can dominate a London dinner party, can dominate the world. I'm a man who can make the most from doing so very little. For a man can be happy with any woman, as long as he does not love her.
Hello, Skylight friends, family, and fans. Welcome to our 9th Skylight Social. This is our Being Earnest preview, and we are here to announce our first show since the shutdown in March. Yes, it's virtual, but it is a show nonetheless. We hope you and yours are well during these challenging times. And we're going to celebrate our first full-length virtual musical, Being Earnest. This delightful and groovy musical is based on Oscar Wilde's The Importance of Being Earnest, and you can enjoy this musical in the comfort of your own computer. The show will be streaming from October 16th to November 12th. You can check out our website to get tickets. A ticket is good for 48 hours of viewing pleasure, and it is $25, and you can purchase it online or through the box office. It's a super bargain for a full-length Skylight quality musical, all local talent, all amazing Milwaukee talents. Now, for those of you who feel ready, we are having a live screening on the big screen in the beautiful Cabot Theater on Saturday, the 17th, this coming Saturday at 7:30 p.m. And that's $35 in person or streaming. You can come to the theater and see it live. You can also stream the entire evening. And the magic of that is that we're going to have a talk back after the screening with myself and several of the cast members. So we hope you'll join us for that, either in person or virtually. You're going to meet a lot of the cast in a few minutes. Of course, if you come in person, we're observing all CDC and state safety protocols, social distancing, masks are required in the house, a reduced house based on the Milwaukee's requirements. And if you want to be part of the live event, or if you want to stream the live event, call our box office, our wonderful box office staff at 414-291-7800. So I've been at Skylight for about a year, just over a year, although 6 months of that was a shutdown pandemic, but we were still working like crazy, including creating this musical that you're about to learn about. And when I applied for the job and I was brought out to meet with the wonderful staff here at Skylight, I was asked to propose 3 hypothetical seasons. As an artistic director, what would I program? And the very first show that I selected for my hypothetical 3 seasons was this musical, Being Earnest, by Paul Gordon and Jay Gruska. And it turns out it is indeed the first show that I'm directing at Skylight, albeit it is virtual. So I'd love to introduce you to the creators of this piece. First, we're going to meet Paul Gordon, who is the book, lyrics, and co-composer. Paul Gordon, welcome. Tony-nominated Paul Gordon, how are you?
I'm good, Michael.
Good, it's great to see you. So tell us a little bit about yourself, the work you do. You're very prolific. He's an amazing artist. Anyway, tell us about yourself, Paul.
Well, I'm a songwriter. I write the librettos to some of my musicals. And probably most importantly right now to me is I've started a streaming platform to preview musicals just like this that gives artists lifetime royalties. And it's called streamingmusicals.com. And we hope Being Earnest will be part of that family at some point. But in the last couple of years, I've been fortunate enough to film several of my musicals: Emma, Pride and Prejudice, and No One Called Ahead. They're all available on Amazon Prime. Anybody can watch them at any time. And the artists in those shows are receiving royalties forever, which is what I think as theater artists is unique and sort of something I'm dedicated to, which is why Being Earnest was so appealing to me. When you came to me and asked me about this virtual model, I was immediately excited.
Well, that's great, Paul. Thank you. And it's an important avenue that you knew was important before the pandemic hit and made that kind of virtual experience even more important. Okay, now we're going to bring on Emmy-nominated, got some good nominations here, Jay Gruska, who is co-composer, arranger, and orchestrator. Hey, Jay, how are you? Welcome.
Hi, Michael. Hi, Paul.
Tell us a little bit about you.
I've worn a bunch of hats like you have to do if you want to get a long run at this. I was a recording artist early on, but mostly a songwriter. And Paul and I have been writing songs together, both for musicals and other recording artists since college. But for the last few decades, I've been scoring movies and television, which is just a different musical muscle, but it's still, my goal for most of my life was just, how can I wake up every day and write music and, make a living doing it? So that has been the extension, but the secret love and the passion projects have been the 3 musicals that I've done with Paul over the last however many years. And, every once or twice a decade, he'll call up and say, what about this idea? And it usually doesn't take me long to say yes, because if I don't say yes right away, he will write it before I wake up the next day.
That's good. So let's talk about Oscar Wilde's most renowned play, one of the wittiest plays in the history of theater, The Importance of Being Earnest, which was made into a musical in 1960 as Earnest in Love, which is sort of a literal version of Wilde's play. But tell us how you came to decide to adapt Earnest, first of all, and second, why you decided to set it in the groovy 60s.
I saw the show when it was at the Roundabout, and I just thought I hadn't ever seen the play version, and I was just sort of blown away by the genius of Oscar Wilde and what an incredibly funny, farcical adventure it was. But there was something in me that went, maybe this could be a musical, and I didn't know about Earnest in Love in the 60s, and I think when I first brought the idea to Jay, we were sort of thinking literally at first. I think we even wrote a couple of songs that were in that version. And I think we realized right away that it wasn't enough. And then the idea, which maybe Jay would remember, I don't even know where it came from, but the idea of the parallel universe between Oscar Wilde's time and the 1960s and the social manners of the day and even some of the dress. And it was, we've set our musical in 1965, which is like a year or two before The Summer of Love, before everything changed. So sort of the hairstyles were starting to drift and the style, which is so fun, but the sort of morality of the time was very similar. So we found that connection, and then we found it in the music, which then Jay and I, when we get in a room together, it's the most fun creating that experience that I have, and writing those songs with Jay, which he'll pick up on, was just a whole other experience and just really fun.
The only footnote that I will add to that is a very selfish from both our parts component, which is that when we were trying to figure out the style of the music, we just looked at each other and went, let's kind of write a Beatles kind of score. That was kind of the propulsion into the style. And it was just because we knew we would have endless fun sort of doing that. So, that was an additional component. But yeah, the aftermath of that was the obvious links between those two times, as Paul just said.
That's wonderful. It is a hooky score, man. I've had these songs stuck in my head blissfully. Like I don't tire of them. I really do not tire of them. Okay, great. So we're going to bring these two guys back in a little bit, and we have some questions for them. We're going to talk a little bit about the process that we went through. Bye, Paul. Bye, Jay. We'll come back to you. A little bit about the process of creating it. So, boy, I wish I invested in Zoom back when, but Zoom helped make this happen, obviously. But Paul and I, from the get-go, wanted to elevate the experience beyond your average Zoom meeting, which we've all become accustomed to. So we had Zoom auditions, I think, in mid-May, and we shot this musical in 8 days, starting on June 8th. And Paul and I have been editing madly ever since. I think, I'm not exaggerating if I say we both put 1,000 hours into editing. But anyway, all local talent, like I said, Milwaukee talent. And so here's what our very first day of rehearsal looked like in a big Zoom call. So that's our lovely cast and Paul and our choreographer, Amanda Marquardt, who is our education director, and Emma Knott, who's an artistic intern. Connor Keelan was our MD, music director. Anyway, so obviously so much of it was done on Zoom. And we actually, we sent props and furniture and costumes to each of the 7 actors in their 7 different homes. Ashley was actually in New York, so we didn't send a chair to New York. We found a chair from her house that we could use. But anyway, so we sent props and costumes around and mustaches and all sorts of stuff so that we could, create the world of the show more than your average Zoom meeting, right? So, so there we were rehearsing on Zoom, and the performers set up. I'm going to show you. We called what we did with our environments MacGyvering, because we had to turn rooms into sound studios with soundproofing and lighting. Anyway, but here I'm going to show you my MacGyvering, which isn't that much MacGyvering because it's really just my home desk in New York. But you can see that my computer, Ashley has an iPhone on a tripod, a laptop behind the iPhone, so I can see the shot and direct her. And she had a third device playing music in her headphones so that we could isolate the vocal tracks from the music tracks. So that was all part of the process. Every night, each actor uploaded 20 gigabytes of data to us. I think we had 700 different takes, 700 shots that Paul and I would edit into this piece. Anyway, here's a little bit of one of our rehearsals. I was just thinking, making movies is one of the hardest, most painstaking processes I've ever experienced. And making musicals is also one of the hardest, most painstaking experiences I've ever experienced. We are making a musical and a movie at the same time. So
Yeah, I'm loving it.
Just,
Who was your father? He was evidently a man of some wealth.
I'm afraid I really don't know. The fact is, Lady Bracknell, I said I had lost my parents. It would be nearer the truth to say that my parents seem to have lost me. I don't actually know who I am by birth. I was found.
Found?
The late Mr. Thomas Cardew, an old gentleman of a very charitable and kindly disposition, found me and gave me the name of Worthing, because he happened to have a first-class ticket for Worthing in his pocket at the time.
Who was your father? He was evidently a man of some wealth.
I'm afraid I really don't know. The fact is, Lady Bracknell, I said I had lost my parents. It would be nearer the truth to say that my parents seem to have lost me. I don't actually know who I am by birth. I was found.
Found?
The late Mr. Thomas Cardew, an old gentleman of a very charitable and kindly disposition, found me and gave me the name of Worthing, because he happened to have a first-class ticket for Worthing in his pocket at the time.
So that was a little bit of our first read through, and then obviously the finished product. So now it's time to bring on some of our fabulous cast. We're going to start with Joey Shalius. Hey, Joey, how are
Hi,
you?
Michael.
Welcome to the Skylight Social.
Thank you so much. Oh, that was so fun to see those two things back to back. Oh my God.
You guys haven't really seen much of the footage, have you?
No.
So let's talk a little bit about the MacGyvering first. So this is Joey's setup. I'm going to share that with you guys. So where was this? Your basement? Where was this, Joey?
Yeah, this is my workout room. I'm currently living at my parents' place just because of the pandemic and everything. And so what we did was we moved all of the workout equipment, and we took like a stack of board games and things, and we had to kind of level there's a good view of it. I'm very blessed to have a 10-year-old brother or he's actually just turned 11, who has lots of things like that are easily stackable. Yeah. So you can kind of see all the workout equipment spread out around the room.
Yes, you can indeed. Cool. All right. So talk to us a little bit about the difference between, performing in a musical on stage and performing in a musical that is sort of a film and a video and a virtual and a Zoom thing. Talk about that experience, if you don't mind.
It was really fun. But certain challenges sort of presented themselves that if I were in charge, I wouldn't necessarily have thought of right away. Things like if I'm on stage with Karen Estrada, who plays Miss Prism in the show, I have to hand her a handbag. Well, she needed to have the same handbag that I did. So the artistic intern, Emma, drove to my house with a mask on, picked up the handbag, and then within a half an hour had it to Karen's house that we could shoot the same shot with the same handbag. Costumes were mailed to my house from UPS, and I would have to take pictures in my bathroom mirrors and send them to Shima, our wonderful costume designer, to make sure that everything was fitting okay. And these are things that would normally be done at the theater, either after a rehearsal or before a rehearsal, or they might even sneak me out of the room for a minute to do them. But things like trading props and fetching costumes and things, we had just a really wonderful team who kind of was all around Milwaukee, driving and picking things up and dropping things off. So our workspace was citywide, which was really interesting. And, we burned a lot of gas, a lot of blood, sweat, and tears went into this. And I think we're all really kind of proud of all that extra work we did.
Yeah, good. So I called a certain type of shooting independent study. So if we got to a scene and we did, maybe we didn't quite match up right, or somebody wanted to do it differently, I could say you can do it on independent study. And Joey, talk about that one shot where you say it's 1 a.m. and I'm making.
Yeah. So, Michael, I don't know if I told you this, but at the time we were shooting, I was also working as a Zoom theater teacher. I was teaching a high school musical class. So my independent study had to be done after I was done teaching. And I was done planning my lessons for the next day and memorizing the lines and everything. So if I had to retake a shot, it typically happened it was by myself, and maybe, I had a really wonderful, my brother Rob was home from college, and he kind of helped me set up my shots and make sure I was in frame and everything. But there were nights that we stayed up till 2-3 in the morning redoing shots. Just because there was no other time to do it. So one night, it was right before my family was about to go on a trip to Montana. I hadn't even begun packing, and I'm like, it's mid-June. I'm in a turtleneck. It's 1:30 in the morning, and I think I was down there for a good hour and a half, just reshooting songs and scenes and things. So if there are scenes where I seem, particularly frustrated in the story, it might also just be 2 a.m. You never know.
And now talk about, so one of our gremlins was bandwidth.
Oh yeah. Oh, gosh.
So like I said, each actor of 7 uploaded 20 gigs of data to us. Joey had some slow internet. Was it dial-up or something? What was going on there?
Yeah, I'm just in not a great neighborhood, my cable company, we just have notoriously slow bandwidth in my neighborhood. So it was taking me up to 12 hours longer than everybody else to get my files uploaded. Just really I think it really peeved everybody. So Michael was kind enough to offer me his Milwaukee apartment, because you were in New York, Michael, at the time. And so the keys to the apartment were dropped off at my house. I drove over there, and I spent the night in Michael's apartment uploading footage. I watched the movie Titanic while I waited for it to upload, and I cried. I cried in your apartment, Michael. But yeah, it was, so but what was so cool is we found ways to make every little thing work, it was just a team that was quick on the draw and finding solutions to little problems like that. And ultimately, you know, then I went on my trip and I actually had to drive all the way out to Shorewood to give Max Pink, who plays Algernon, the rest of my footage. And he uploaded the rest of it for me because he had, and there's my hard drive.
It's literally
because
Joey's
Michael
hard drive.
needed-
You drive it to me so I can get something off of it. So great.
Yeah. So I've been all around. I've been up at all hours. And I wouldn't trade it for the world.
Yeah. So we got to be creative in these times, and rather than looking at these, challenges, we look at them as opportunities. So I'm going to play another section. So the way we would set it up is we had, if you were making a movie, everyone's in the same room, and you say, take 305, and then someone would clap the board for slate, and you'd be able to sync the sound up by the clapboard. And, you have one slate for the entire scene. We had 7 slates for each scene because we had 7 different people. So here's an example of how we actually shot each of the scenes. Which one is this? Yep, here we go.
Right.
Max, 411. So, nope, 412. AC, take 1.
412 AC, take 1.
Stephanie, 412 GC, take 1.
412 GC, take 1.
Nathan, 412 BC, take 1.
412 BC, take 1.
Joey, 412 JC, take 1.
412 JC, take 1.
And Acton.
Good afternoon, dear Algernon. I hope you are behaving quite well.
I'm feeling very well, Aunt Augusta.
Sorry, you have to walk into frame.
That is.
Nathan, you have to walk into frame.
Oh, thank you. Just kidding.
Lady Bracknell and Miss Fairfax.
Good afternoon, dear Algernon. I hope you are behaving very well.
I'm feeling very well, Aunt Augusta.
That's not quite the same thing. In fact, the two things rarely go together.
Gwendolyn, you're looking smart.
I am always smart. Am I not, Mr. Worthing?
You are quite perfect, Miss Fairfax.
Oh, I hope I am not that. It would leave no room for developments, and I intend to develop in many directions.
Cut, please.
Lady Bracknell and Miss Fairfax.
Good afternoon, dear Algernon. I hope you are behaving very well.
I'm feeling very well, Aunt Augusta.
That is not quite the same thing. In fact, the two things rarely go together.
Gwendolyn, you're looking smart.
I am always smart. Am I not, Mr. Worthing?
You are quite perfect, Miss Fairfax.
Oh, I hope I am not that. It would leave no room for developments, and I intend to develop in many directions.
So here we go with Stephanie Stasek. Welcome, Stephanie.
Hi.
Our Gwendolyn Fairfax.
Yes,
All right.
I'm good. I realize that I have true anxiety watching myself, but it looks so good.
Oh, you are so beautiful in this film. You are
Thank you.
camera ready, my friend.
Oh,
All right. So let's look at your MacGyver, shall we?
yeah.
Okay, here we go. Packers fan. So what room was this?
This is my old bedroom at my parents' house.
Which had a fantastically beautiful color, a maroon background. That was amazing. So
Yes, I had gone through an emo phase in high school, and my parents were kind enough to let me do some color choices there. So
fantastic. All right, so talk to us about some of the, challenges, favorite moments, silly stuff that you remember from this experience.
there's so much. I'm actually glad you got a good take of me slating, because I seem to be really bad at remembering what you had just told me. And actually now I've been doing a lot of self-tape auditions, and I still do takes and clap there's no reason, but it's like ingrained in me. But I think the biggest challenge was that I had to use my brother's phone and go to my parents' house, and my brother and my father they are still working from home. And so just figuring out, they were kind enough to let me do this the entire work day, but trying to time it to make sure that we wouldn't hear my brother on a meeting, because he was literally just a room over. And then yeah, uploading, he was very patient with me because it did take a little bit to get his phone, the videos from his phone to my computer. Sometimes I had to do it to my phone and then to my computer. So
I want to offer a special shout out to the brothers, the partners, the boyfriends, girlfriends, the brothers, the helpers who helped make this happen, because it just couldn't happen alone. You know, life doesn't work that way. So
yeah. And then, I mean, other than that, the interesting thing was doing this and being able to hear each other, but not necessarily being able to see. So like in those scenes, you did a really great job of telling us where we all were locationally, but it was just a very different experience from especially theater, because obviously everybody's in the same room, and you can very well see each other.
Keep in mind, when you see the film, they could hear their scene partners, but could not see anything, because the Zoom, well, they could have maybe seen it on the Zoom call. But anyway, and speaking of the slating, so I had them clap so we could sync up the sound and the picture, because for some reason, everybody was a few frames off, but some were 7 frames off. You were consistently 4 frames off. It was so bizarre. All the footage had different frame rates, so everything got ingested weirdly, so I had to translate everything. It was so complicated. And for some reason, Stephanie, a lot of your footage like became double wide. I have no idea why, so I had to re-ingest and squeeze you down and make you normal again. Anyway, but
COVID-19.
Yeah. So I want to play a little bit of our dance rehearsal. So Amanda Marquardt, like I said, who's the Skylight's education manager, was a choreographer, and she had a really fun time teaching our cast some 60s craze dances.
Here we go. If I have to hitch a crown the world, hitch Five, 6, 7. Here it comes. Here we go.
When the gods want to punish us, they answer our prayers. How ideal and devoid of devotion. And it's true, I'm not young enough to know all there is, but in time, you will find you've declined. We are all in the gutter. We are all in the gutter. We are all in the gutter. Some of us are looking at the stars.
I have to say, I'm really enjoying this retrospective of my pandemic hair and beard growth. Anyway, I'm going to bring on Karen Estrada.
Boy, Stephanie is not wrong about the anxiety of watching yourself on film, which is something that I have avoided for most of my career because I prefer theater and not having so much of a record of what's occurring. But it is delightful nonetheless. For most of those dance ones, my husband was in the room just giggling at me.
You are super delightful in this film.
Thanks.
A Milwaukee funny lady, like nobody's business. You got the corner on the market. So tell us a little bit about your experience with this crazy process.
Yeah, I was so excited to have it. Boy, what a marvelous thing in that terrible early time that we were doing this, to have something to work on and look forward to, and something so delightful and frothy and great as Earnest, which I think in this 1960s version is particularly effective and interesting and fun. I like that it's normal. I tend to be a bit of a traditionalist when it comes to Oscar Wilde and Woodhouse and things like that. And Austen. So I really like it when it's done super well. And I think that this this version of it is so delightful. And so learning all this stuff, I mean, it was such a huge learning curve, all told. Just again, like everyone else, like kicking my husband, who was then working from home, out of the spare room, making an entire studio, because I was not only filming this, but I was also filming something for First Stage, which was just both. Look, I bought a ring light, and I borrowed some film equipment from a friend, and I borrowed like 8 tripods from people.
Where'd you sleep if your mattress was against the wall?
Oh yeah, well, it was both sound deadening and it blocked the light. So
perfect solution.
All sorts of things that I had to learn. What you don't see is every once in a while, one of the benefits of film work, especially in a truncated rehearsal process where you don't get to move. Like for me, learning things often happens physically, in like learning the blocking, doing that sort of thing is when I'm like, now I've really tapped into the character. So every once in a while, don't tell anyone, I would write my cue line on a piece of paper and tape it to the wall where I needed to be looking, so I would know exactly what I was waiting for.
Karen, you're not the only one who did that. So explain this chart to the viewers at home.
Well, that's exactly it. So if there's a couple of scenes where I wasn't just talking to a person, but there'd be almost the entire cast was there on stage. And so you had this marvelous thing, which not having done film work, I'd never seen before, where I took painter's tape and marked a lot of things in that film room. And so you would, if I'm standing at center stage, which is XC, then if I'm looking directly at the camera, I'm looking at number 3. But if I need to be looking at perhaps Lady Bracknell is over here, well, then I'll look at number 2. And then maybe Earnest is over here, and then I'm looking at number 1, just so that when you were reacting to different people, because you could only hear them in your ear, then I would know who to take to react and who I was talking to, so that our eye lines would line up with the camera, which was really interesting and cool. I thought a very slick way to get that done.
Again, keep in mind when you see this film that nobody was in the same room as anyone else. So when you see 7 people on the screen at the same time, we're all thinking of what numbers we're at. And then we'd also use that chart to say, okay, put the camera at number 2, but you still face number 3 so we can get a different angle so we can cut back and forth. So anyway, very good, very good. Okay, well, thanks. I'm going to bring on Ashley, our lovely Cecily Caudieu. Hello, Ashley Oviedo. How are you today?
Hi, good. How are you?
Nice to see you.
Nice to see you too.
So Ashley, you just graduated from UW Milwaukee, right?
Mm-hmm, I did.
And but she was in New York when we were actually shooting this project in June. So she's the one to whom we emailed lots of, not emailed, actually really mailed lots of things. And I'm going to go to your MacGyver because this is funny. I remember the day that we first looked at your the room you were going to shoot in, there was this massive cadenza, this massive sideboard against that wall, and it must have weighed what, 500 pounds or something? It was huge.
Yeah, a lot, and it had dishes in it inside too.
So God bless them, your family, your parents helped you move that huge thing into a different room so we could use that as a studio.
Yep, and it's all wood floors, so we had to put towels underneath. We were all shoving it, and then the dining table is like that brown table with the scripts and the cups, so everything was kind of shoved, so you couldn't like move out of the dining room. And my mom was like, so thank you, Mom.
Thank you, Mom. Thank you, Dad. Dad's actually in this film. You'll see in just a moment.
Yes.
And we had to do a kneeling shot, so Ashley had to put the Zoom computer on the floor so I could see her and lower the camera. Anyway, it was super fun. So Ashley, tell us about some of your challenges, experiences, memories from this.
Yeah, I feel like the one that sticks out the most for me is just my family, because there's 7 people in my house and most of them are little kids. So the amount of times I would like mute myself and be like, no, because there's like kids running around. And then 1 minute they're like quiet and they're like waiting, but then they'll just have a moment and be like, ah! So that was, yeah. And then doing our own like hair and makeup and going off of like the tutorials that you guys would send and trying to create beehives that wouldn't move when we were dancing. That's, yeah, that was crazy, but it was fun.
So we talked about these break the box moments, like where we pass the glass of sherry. So there's a moment where Lady Brack says to Cecily, "You may kiss my hand," and I'm going to share that with you right now.
Cecily, you may kiss my hand.
Thank you, Lady Bracknell.
Whose hand was that?
Gosh, that was my dad's hand. Oh my gosh, it looks so like I haven't seen it yet. Like that's amazing.
Yeah, we had some fun with that. Cool. All right. So I'm going to bring Paul Gordon back on, but stick around, performance, because we're going to have some questions later that maybe you can help answer. So Paul and I edited this together. He edited the songs and I edited the scenes because we knew it wouldn't get done because we couldn't afford to pay anyone else to do it. Right. So in the midst of, running a theater and writing and working on 3 other musicals and podcasts, Paul, we have sort of figured out a way to make this thing happen with, it's probably 1,000 hours each. Anyway, so I want to talk a little bit about how we treated the songs different from the scenes in terms of a visual vocabulary. Want to talk about that a little bit?
Well, yeah, I mean, I think at first we were just trying to figure out the visual language of the music. How to make, whereas you'd have a lighting change in a song on stage, in a number, what kind of effect could we do in this format where we're so limited? And I was trying a lot of things at first to see what could happen. And then I finally went, we're making a Zoom musical. Why not embrace that form? Why run away from it? Why not use it to enhance it? And so I sort of came up with this idea of these little Zoom windows and inserting pictures and images from the 60s. And it just started to come together, but it actually took a couple of months into the editing process to really figure it all out and then to try to become adept with it, because it was really just sort of learning a new language and learning a new skill that I didn't have before. I've been editing film off and on just with side projects for a few years, but jumping into this was pretty intensive.
Yeah, in the same way, I sort of spoke to you about this, in the same way that you use a follow spot in a musical number, but not necessarily in a scene. We sort of decided that the musical vocabulary could be different.
Yes.
Than the.
And I think that was important to establish that sort of border, and feel like we're in a scene now where we're in a different reality, yet we're still in the same piece. And then you and I took a little while to figure out how to connect the book scenes to the songs, and you had to learn on your feet as well, as we both did, because this is really something new. These remote musicals are just starting. And of course, a lot of the Zoom musicals were live, were limited sort of in the technology of what they were doing. And this is sort of an opportunity to be more expansive in the art form, which we're sort of inventing and figuring out as we go.
Yeah, good point. Thank you, Paul. If anybody has any questions, please post them. We will bring them up and answer them as best we can. I'll answer that in a second. Leave it up there if you don't mind. I do want to mention there are 3 performers who are not able to be with us tonight. Max Pink, who played Algernon, Nathan Marinan, who played Lady Bracknell, and Tim Reavers, who played 3 parts, Lane, Merriman, and Dr. Chasuble. All fabulous. You'll see them when you watch the film. So what were the challenges in directing? Not being in the same room as people, bandwidth, things not being in sync. But, again, it was the excitement of trying to figure out how to make what might be considered a challenge into an opportunity. And I'd say the hardest challenge, though, was when you're staging a scene, you've got, say, a cast of 7 in the same room, and you can say, okay, Ashley, move over there, Stephanie, go over there, and you look at each other this way. But because they couldn't see each other, and I'm the only one who could see everybody, and I used sometimes we use Zoom, but often I use this platform called StreamYard, because you could arrange people in boxes. So I could actually have Ashley be here and Stephanie be here, so I could make sure they're looking at each other and that the eye lines match. But that was a really big challenge to sort of try and figure out ahead of time how I wanted to lay them out and how they'd appear on screen when they were all in 7 different homes doing their scenes. And yeah, I'd say that was one of the bigger challenges. In fact, in editing, and I decided to move someone to the other side of the screen for a particular scene, and I had to just reverse the picture. So you might see, Joey, your pocket's on the left, sometimes it's on the right. Anyway, that's that question. Any other questions out there, folks? I do want to remind, did we have to deal with power outages? Ashley, let's bring some folks on. We can have a bunch of people on, because that's fun. I don't know, did we?
My cable went out, my internet that one time.
Oh, I remember that. Yeah, right. Also, you also ran out of space on your phone.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Every 2 days, every day.
So we had to make sure that Ashley's footage was uploaded in the cloud and on 2 local drives, so 2 hard drives plus the cloud before we let her delete anything in case there were some issues. And like I said with Joey, I missed some footage somehow, so that's why I've got his hard drive still. You can pick it up, Joey. I'm done with it.
Great. Cool. We'll figure it out after the show.
Any more questions? Well, I'm going to say I hope you will all tune in to watch these fabulous people in Being Earnest. It's a great musical. It's so much fun. Oscar Wilde meets Austin Powers in Carnaby Street, London. The fashions are great. The music is incredible. Let's bring Paul and Jay back on because we can. Can I fit it? Oh, what was the biggest vocal challenge? That's a good question.
I think singing some things over and over again. There was like that one note I kept singing wrong, and then I could get the acting but miss the note, or I'd get the note and not act. That was mine, and it haunts me to this day. No.
Joey, what do you got?
It's interesting having to do, like, especially duets when you're doing them with someone who's not actually in the room. So Max, who plays Algernon, and I have probably half a dozen numbers together in this show, and having to play off of each other in a way that not only vocally makes sense, where like our cutoffs and our vowels are all shaped the same way when we're not actually in the same room. Also, playing off of each other's intentions is very difficult too, because you don't have that other person's energy in the room with you. A lot of the times I was singing to an exercise bike or to
Keep in mind, so when people were doing scenes, they could hear each other, but when they did songs, we did each track individually.
Yeah.
Now that you've done the show as a Zoom style performance, has the experience informed you how you might produce it on stage? Well, I'll tell you, the reason I selected Being Earnest and called Paul in the first place is because it's a fabulous musical. It's based on one of the greatest plays ever written, but also there are no huge production numbers necessarily. You could tell the story in an intimate way. 3-4 person scenes, 2-person scenes. So it lended itself very well to a online platform, I thought. And we did try and work in as much choreography as we could. Amanda, apologies if we didn't quite get it all in there. But it seemed like a really good scale of musical to produce in this way. So I think I've learned that I'd like to do this on stage also. What was the most challenging part of filming a full musical movie in 8 days? Getting it done. We were limited in time, so we had to get the shots and then move on. So a lot of that is due to theater directing is 80-90% casting. So if you cast well, you're gonna get great product no matter how much time you spend, whether you have a lot of time or little time.
Michael, I have to say that I did not know the level of MacGyvering that went on for this, and I'm incredibly impressed with all of you.
Oh, good. Good, Jay. Well, we hope you'll like the finished product. It's coming soon. So, all right. Well, so go to our website, www.skylightmusictheatre.org. That's THEATRE. Grab tickets. Again, you can watch it in the comfort of your own computer. Also, if you want to come out live and see this, we're going to be at the beautiful Cabot Theater this Saturday at 7:30. For that, you have to call the box office, and you'll meet several of these wonderful people on the screen right now, and some others as well. So we hope you all stay safe and well. We hope we will see you on streaming for this, or in person on Saturday, and we hope you will look forward to our return to the live stage, Little Shop of Horrors, opening November 13th. Thank you, cast and authors of Being Earnest. It's been a lot to work with you, and I can't wait to share the finished project with all of you. Thank you so much.
Good to see all you guys.
Good night.
Good night.